Thanks for downloading another segment from the Best of the Classic Metal Show. The Classic Metal Show is heard live on Saturdays from 9 p.m. to 3 a.m. Eastern, exclusively at www.theclassicmetalshow.com. And now here's another piece of Classic Metal Show history on the Best of the Classic Metal Show.
The Classic Metal Show.
That's an artist by the name of Wille Basse, and the name of his new CD is called Money Grind. And Chris, you've been telling me about this guy a little bit. Probably most of our Classic Metal Show listeners may not be familiar with Wille Basse, but what can you tell us about him?
I know Willie was in one of those bands that never seemed to get their fair credit back in the 80s, but yet launched half a dozen major players into the scene with his band Black Sheep, and Willie himself has had quite an interesting career both as a musician and as a gearhead, so to speak. So I thought it might be interesting to have Willie on the show.
Sure, absolutely. So. Well, without further ado, let's bring vocalist and gearhead extraordinaire to the air. This is Wille Basse. Welcome to the Classic Metal Show, Willie.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. Well, Willie, I got to be honest with you. I know very little about you aside from what Chris has filled us in on, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners are probably maybe at a loss. So this is your opportunity to step up to the plate and shine.
Oh, wow. I love that. Yeah, I'm Wille Basse. I sing, play bass, engineer, produce, and I build studios as well.
Very cool. Well, Willie, your, if we want to call it quote-unquote claim to fame, was back in the, around the mid-'80s was when Trouble in the Streets came out with your band Black Sheep. It was one of those albums, it was very reminiscent of the kind of music that was going on at the time, and it never seemed to get over. But like we were saying earlier, you launched from that band numerous guys. Maybe a good place to start would be maybe to kind of step back to that time and talk about what Black Sheep was and, who all came in and out of the band.
Well, Black Sheep, that era in the mid-'80s was like a very interesting time because we didn't really know what we had at the time, but it was like we were sort of like pioneers into what the rock scene became like later.
Sure.
Like I used to give these parties. I used to give keg parties over at my studio. I was always the guy with the studios, and a lot of the hair bands came out of my studio, like Bitch. Let's see, there was Leatherwolf, Guns N' Roses, L.A. Guns. At one point or another, Poison, Warrant, all of those bands came through my studio or the studio next door, which was DB Sound. And then we used to throw these keg parties, it was like 3 bands, 3 kegs, and 600 people. So the whole parking lot would be, we'd have to charge at the street because the whole parking lot would just be filled with metalheads and everybody smoking pot and drinking and having a great time. And it just grew into this phenomenon, and we wound up having to start renting out like American Legion halls and different venues because it got out of hand and the neighbors started calling the fire department and stuff. So that was the beginning of us renting. We would rent the Roxy and the whiskey because it used to be like when I was coming up, you used to have to have a record out to play the whiskey and the Roxy. But we found that we could rent those venues and hence started the Sunset scene.
Right.
And then I also had a rehearsal studio. We had a printing press in the office. And so actually we printed a lot of the flyers for the bands that were flying up and down the Sunset Strip. I mean, it was like a madhouse. It turned into just insanity on the Sunset Strip. I'm sure you've heard Motley Crue and a lot of the bands talk about the Sunset Strip scene.
Right.
So we were printing flyers for these guys. So it was, this is like Poison before CC was in the band. Bands like Tough, Poison, Guns N' Roses. I mean, everybody. Odin. You know, well, I was like, I used to share a basement with Wasp before they got their record deal. I shared a rehearsal studio with Lita Ford before she got her record deal, or right about the time when she got signed. You know, it's been a long haul.
Right. Well, Willie, I'm interested now. I remember vaguely when Trouble in the Streets came out. I remember hearing it on the radio, and it fit right in. And for what most people probably don't remember is that it was on Enigma, which the way my memory works more than knowing for a fact. But it seems like you came out, and then it wasn't that much longer before Look What the Cat Dragged In came out from Poison. Do you think that that's what stopped
that time period?
Right. Do you think that that's what
like
stopped
Striper?
when
our record came out, Striper was the big thing in Enigma.
Okay. So do you think that you just kind of fell in a bad time then between Striper and Poison, which obviously was monstrous?
No, I'm absolutely stoked at the way things went and what it is, and I mean we got a ton of airplay before Enigma got involved. We were like in pretty much heavy rotation on a lot of the metal shows and stuff. We got a ton of airplay. What happened was back then I was more focused on the Sunset Strip and the Hollywood LA scene rather than the world, because Enigma actually later on when I found out they had sent the record everywhere, all over the world. I mean, I wound up getting letters, fan mail from like Belgium, and I mean it was crazy, man, the Netherlands and stuff. But I didn't see we didn't have a manager. I didn't know, it's the same old thing. If I knew then what I know now,
right.
I would have concentrated on the whole world rather than just LA. LA is more like The Office. There's a whole world out there. But I was young and I didn't know.
You mean Vicki Hamilton wasn't whoring around down there? You could have snagged her?
Well, Vicki was kind of instrumental in getting me hooked up with Enigma, but actually it was what's the guy, Scott? He was in the guitarist in the Surf Punks, and he worked for Enigma sort of like outside, and I had talked to Wes Hine for years, and actually Vicki did manage us for a short stretch because I took Slash up to Vicki's house. I introduced Slash to Vicki Hamilton, and hence had I said I'll charge you 5 cents per album if anything ever happens. But no, it's cool. I got a special thanks on the Appetite album down in the Coke dealer section, and so it was what it was.
Well,
thank you. Thank you for $10 million. Probably
gave me major props in his book now. That's the New York Times bestseller. He gave me a lot of props and pretty much told the truth, and so it's just like things happen when it's the right time.
Well, what can you?
Had I made a ton of money back then, I probably would be dead because, man, we partied hard back then.
Well, what can you tell us about Nader the Priest?
I never really hung out with him, but he was kind of one of the peers, and I would see him at the Rainbow, and he was a cool guy, and they definitely had the look.
Well, have you ever had any dealings with the Snake Man, Victor the Snake Man, down there on the Strip?
Oh yeah. I know him.
What do you know about him?
I know that he's cool. I bought some of his jewelry, and then I saw him sit in with a band one night over at a club in Beverly Hills, and the Snake Man is cool.
Okay. Well, Willie, I used to hang down around the Strip there too. Back between '85 and '91 myself.
Really? What band?
Just hanging on the Strip there. I had a band that we never made it. We were called Steel Piston.
Huh.
Remember Steel Piston? They were like demoing for our MCA. I'm sorry, Neely.
That's all right, man. I don't talk about it much. It's a hard thing for me to talk about, but Willie brings back a lot of memories for me.
Right.
That's cool. No, I don't remember. I was like pretty engulfed in, what was happening. I mean, did you ever come to the keg parties over on Lancashire?
No, I wasn't into the drinking scene back then. I'd just get up there, play my drums, and then I'd slink off into the darkness.
But you remember the country club days. And all
absolutely.
That, right?
The Troubadour, the country club, the Roxy, the whiskey, the coconut teaser, all those.
The sleazer.
Yeah, man.
The sleazer. I was at the Trube tonight, because the Trube was like a mainstay for Black Sheep. I mean, we used to go in there with like 200 lights, and then eventually my lighting guy did a lighting system for them, blah, blah, blah. But I was there when Pantera pulled up with a station wagon and a U-Haul trailer going L.A. or bust, spray painted on the U-Haul. And no one knew who they were, but I knew who they were because we were in Metal Forces magazine, out of London, out of Europe. We were in that magazine together, and so I hung out with those guys. They came back to my studio over there, and we jammed all night, and it was we had a great old time, But yeah, that's how far back we go,
Sure. Well, Willie, the one thing that I'm hearing, from listening to you talk is that it seems like, unlike most musicians, you were kind of focused on the business aspect, at least on some kind of business aspect from the very, very beginnings. Is that pretty accurate?
Oh yeah. I'm blessed to have some sort of business savvy. And like I said, I was always the guy, even when Loaded, I was the guy with the studios. And, it was like I had worked with Andy Johns, who did all the Led Zeppelin albums, and Gary Kilgren, who was a producer of Jimi Hendrix and built the original record plant. And so I played with Buddy Miles. Buddy Miles played drums with Jimi Hendrix and the Band of Gypsies. That's where I come from, out of that camp. And so I like everybody else was getting loaded and getting laid in the jacuzzi room or whatever, and I was like following Andy Johns around like a little puppy dog going, why are you using that mic? And oh, you measure this and you aim the mic that way, and that's how you got that sound on when the levee breaks, and I'm like, was way into what was going on technically. I've always kind of been a gearhead and into the sound, and so that those guys kind of turned into my mentors.
Sure.
I wanted to be like them.
Right.
So well, Andy, I've been talking to Andy lately. We may do something at the beginning of next year. I'm kind of talking about doing the next record together. Which would be awesome because he gets the killer drums.
Oh yeah. Well, obviously, you have a record out now, which is called "The Money Grind," and the thing that I found most interesting about it from listening to it, and giving it plenty of listens, is that it's not your traditional. Here's how I'll put it: is when people hear that the former vocalist of a band from the '80s is back doing new music, they immediately think, all right, it's just it's a return to hair band heaven. But that's not really what you did on this. I mean, there's some songs that play the classic style. And then you got songs like Po' Boy as an example that really stretch far beyond anything that you ever did with Black Sheep. Were you trying for the diversity, or is that just kind of where you are now as an artist?
Well, see, I grew up as a choir boy, and I have a lot of classical influence.
Okay.
And, I mean, from 10 to 15, I sang classical, studied classical, and we won 2 Grammy Awards for Best Classical Album and Best Classical Vocal Performance. And so, I always have leaned towards the British bands, or the English bands, Deep Purple, Black Sabbath, that sort of stuff. And but then I came out here and started doing blues. Like I started playing bass, got into blues. I was playing behind O.V. Wright, Z.Z. Hill, Johnny Taylor. You know, I didn't realize it at the time. Just like when I was like what, maybe 14 years old or 13, playing Carnegie Hall. With, you know, it's like 12 guys singing in Carnegie Hall with no PA. You know, I mean, I didn't think anything of it. It was like the norm. But that's, thinking back, that's a hell of a thing to do at 12, 13 years old. You know, so you know. Playing with all these blues guys growing up, you know, that really like shaped my thinking and songwriting skills. Then coming out here, getting involved with Buddy Miles, the Hendrix camp, you know, and then meeting Andy Johns and doing all of that, it led me into, you know, different styles of music. And I always liked that about Led Zeppelin, was that they mixed the styles. They did more than just like heavy metal. There were more sides and more depth to them, to what's going on. So I would think, you know, I have a lot of influence with Bob Marley and the Police and stuff. So I wanted to show different sides to what I do.
Sure. Now, what drove you to record an album here? I mean, I'm sure you never stopped making music, but it's been almost 10 years since your EP came out, the last thing that you did with Black Sheep, and really it's been 25 years since Trouble in the Streets came out. You know, I mean, what drives you to come back?
What happened was with the EP, the Sacrifice EP, that was sort of like a defiant, I just kind of threw that in the guy's face because I sold the name Black Sheep to the rap group and then they didn't pay me the money. So I was like, fuck this. I'm taking the name back and I'm going to put out another album, just see if anybody cares or what's up. And it actually was well received and was in 42 markets nationwide and actually went to number one in a few markets. But I ran out of money. So
okay.
That led me to go into real estate, and I thought, you know, I'm never going to be broke again. I'm going to make a shitload of money and promote my band. And then now recently the bottom fell out of real estate in L.A.
Right.
And so I looked at my catalog, and I was like, wow, I've got 42 songs here, you know. So over the years, I didn't realize it, but I kept recording along the whole trail, the whole way to get to where I am today. I was always recording because I owned recording studios. And, you know, granted, I was engineering for other people and doing other jobs and stuff for other people, but I was also recording myself.
Well,
so what you're hearing is some of the stuff that I recorded along the way.
Well, Willie, I need to ask you, being that most of our fans, you know, probably aren't that familiar with you, which is the reason why you're on here, but can you tell me tell me a little bit about your songs, and are your
tunes hummable?
Are they hummable? I would like to think so. Hum. 40-cycle hum.
Well, Willie, what do you think when people compare your vocals to Paul Stanley?
I knew you were going to say that. It's like, I never bought a Kiss record in my life, but it's amazing. I mean, I would, even in Arkansas, where were we? We were on tour. It's like real weird. The last record took off in Kentucky, and it's like, if you'd have asked me, where's this record going to like do best at, I never would have said Kentucky, but they were saying they heard Someone Like You and thought that Paul Stanley had a solo project. I was like, what?
Nice. Dude, you should put on the Kiss makeup and sell it that way, man.
Well, I'm grateful to be, you know, they're very successful, but I have to say that I never bought a Kiss record.
Yeah, you're the smart one in that bunch, that's for sure.
Well, I mean, I have deep respect for what they do, you know, and what they're doing. And then, you know, I saw the recent Kiss Unplugged thing, and, man, they were just running down the hits, man. They got a lot of great songs.
Sure. Now, Willie, this is just something that I've always been curious of, and I've really never had the opportunity to ask anybody about it. But one of the things that always kind of disturbed me a little bit in the late '80s and early '90s was the way that the band Living Colour was pushed forward as a quote unquote black metal band. Now, with you being a black man, is that really offensive to label a band that way, because it kind of pulls away from the actual music itself and puts a label in front of the tunes?
Well, absolutely. But I don't consider that stuff metal or, you know
what I'm saying,
no
right?
Disrespect to them, I don't call that rock, you know. That's like some kind of hybrid funk thing or something.
Right, but you know what I'm saying, though, don't you? That they
label
it
know
instead
who I am. They know what I
that's
do.
Okay.
Like you hear my music, you can't tell if I'm black. It's like the last thing you think is that I'm a black guy, because I'm doing real metal. It's real American rock music, you know.
Right.
So
right.
I mean, that stuff is
some
kind of funk hybrid thing, which it's cool, but that's not where I'm at.
Sure. Now, what do you expect to accomplish with the Money Grind, man? Are you looking to break it out on radio, or is it just something you did for fun, or what is your goal with it?
Well, I actually put that compilation of 14 songs together to just kind of like let people know that I'm still here and that I'm making music and I'm alive, and kind of set up my distribution and make sure that it was available on iTunes and downloadable and stuff. So it's this was just really a foundational tool to set up for the next album, which is called Which Side Are You On? Which will be coming out somewhere around March of next year.
Sure.
And that album's got James Kotek from the Scorpions on it.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, we know James.
Yeah.
Now, Willie, one of the things I did notice from reading your website, it was something I didn't know, previously, is that you are not only a connoisseur of gear, but you do for a profession. You go out and find really hard to find gear for some of the bigger name artists out there. Is that correct?
Oh yeah, do that.
And how did you get into that?
I'm putting together a facility right now as we speak, and it's going to be awesome.
Who, Ricky Rocket of Poison?
No. This is I'm actually doing a studio for my label, which is New Empire Media.
Cool, very
and
cool. Now, how did you get into that? Were you like a NAMM guy, or how did you get into that business?
Well, I was actually looking to purchase gear for myself, and I ran into the owner of Ocean Way Studios, Alan Sides. He's engineered for Green Day and Stone Temple Pilots, Madonna. He's probably one of the best engineers today. And his studio, he's got 8 studios, and they're probably the most successful recording studios in the business. Very well respected around the world, Ocean Way. And he had this board he was trying to sell, and he kept pushing it on me, and he was like, well, look, if you know anybody else that might need it, you could make a little money and, keep some of the gear. And I was like, what? And so I wound up selling this board. It was like a Trident from the late 70s, and it was an eye-opener. And then when I finally found the gear for myself, I wound up with the board from Pasha Studios, where the Spencer Prophet cut all the Quiet Riot albums on that board. So
sure.
And they also did Girls, Girls, Girls on that board.
Wow.
Theater of Pain.
Cool.
And Richard Marx, Vixen, and the Guns N' Roses Lies, the second album, they did that on that console. So I had that console for about 10 years.
Very cool. Now, do you go out to NAMM and check out the new gear every year, looking for the next big thing?
I'm kind of, but I have connections all over the world. I import gear from all over. mainly from Europe.
Right on. Well, as Neely was saying before, he's a drummer, and I know he's been really partial to like Striggle heads for his drums. Have you worked with Striggles at all?
No, I haven't. I'm not familiar with them.
They usually go very well with the astronomy pedals.
Astronomy? Really?
You don't use those?
No, never heard of either one of them.
Yeah. Yeah, I retrofitted my vintage sonar kit with Striggle heads and astronomy pedals, and it seems to be a good match.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm kind of a
I'm
gear
writing
head.
that down.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Strigl, Striggles. They're good. They, that band Ronin or Captain T in Astronomy. They're those I don't know what you call them, gay fusion bands or something. They're the ones that we saw them in the magazines, and I think that's why you bought them, isn't it, Neely?
Yeah, but because I wanted to sound real gay, but. Actually, they were recommended to me by another, studio guru, Rev and Black Metal Ray. They have a studio over in Oklahoma City, and they recommended that to me. They said that was a real hot setup, so I went ahead and took their advice and got that.
Did you ever work with those guys, Willie?
No. We played the what was that? It's like a Asian guy. He's got that club down in Oklahoma.
Kim.
What was it? The sake,
Kim Chin?
Some kind of sake house or?
Oh yeah, the House of Chin.
Anyway, it's rocking down there. We had a really good time there.
Excellent.
Cool, Willie. Well, being that you have all this music and you're trying to get your name back out there and become more commonly known, where can people find out about you?
They can buy it on iTunes or any of the download sites, Rhapsody, any of that. It's available.
You have a website or a MySpace or anything like that?
Definitely have a MySpace, Wille Basse, WILLIE BASSE. You can get it there.
Cool.
So it's all over the world, downloadable.
Excellent. Well, is there anything else about this new CD, The Money Grind, that you want to let people know about that we haven't touched on here?
Well, I think we're going to release a single, and I'm just trying to figure out which song would be the single. What do you guys think?
Well, I think
anything but Danger Zone.
I agree.
I got to admit, not digging the Danger Zone, but I like everything else on it. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I kind of put that on there because it's Randy on drums, and I always love Randy's playing. Randy from Ozzy Osbourne.
Yeah,
sure, and Motley Crue.
Yeah. But I'm kind of feeling Love So Far Away, or either It's Over.
That's a good one there. It's Over is really good.
Yeah, I love that.
And if it fails to chart, it'll be a self-prophecy song.
Got to be careful with that.
All right, Willie, we appreciate you taking a few minutes.
Well, just for a little bit of trivia, it's Rick Parnell is playing drums on Don't Waste My Time, and he was the drummer in Spinal Tap.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Which I hear is getting back together for a 25-year anniversary and a tour and a record.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, we got the news here first on the Classic Metal Show.
Cool.
We're just like we're like the Fox News of classic metal.
Well, that's awesome. I'm glad you guys are around, and thanks for getting in touch with me.
Excellent.
Look for that. We're doing a Thin Lizzy tribute album, which should come out somewhere around the first of the year. It's got a lot of special guest players on it.
Sure. All right, Willie. Well, we appreciate you taking a few minutes to talk to us here on the Classic Metal Show. And before we let you go, we're going to ask you the traditional Classic Metal Show question. And I'm sure that you have probably had some interaction with this guy. But how has Lemmy from Motorhead influenced your career?
He's my daddy. I want to be just like Lemmy when I grow up. No, I've just went out and bought a black Rickenbacker, and I'm ready to go on tour and just kill them.
Nice.
Excellent. All right, well, the name of the new CD is called The Money Grind by Wille Basse. And you want to go out and pick that thing up and visit him over there at his MySpace page and, all that good stuff. And and drop him a comment over there. Let him know you heard him here on the Classic Metal Show. So, Willie, we always let the artist pick a closing song. So what should we play?
Don't Waste My Time.
All right, my sentiments exactly. So here it is. It's The Money Grind with Don't Waste My Time exclusively here
on your Classic Metal Show.
Thanks for checking out the best of the Classic Metal Show. You can tune into the Classic Metal Show live every Saturday night from 9 p.m. to 3 a.m. Eastern, exclusively at www.theclassicmetalshow.com.
The Classic Metal Show.